History is more than ink on a page. It's a story shaped by those who dare to carve their names into its chapters. But how much of that story is real? History has never been a concrete science. It is what the present chooses to believe about the past. What if the American Revolution was one such event? Not just a war for independence, but a battle for something far more sinister. Beneath the war-worn tales of rebellion, another war was waged in the shadows, where the fate of a fledgling nation teetered between freedom and the horrors of the supernatural. Sleepy Hollow uncovers a world where myth and history intertwines, where Ichabod Crane, once a soldier, now a man out of time, awakens to a war that never truly ended. The past lingers like a ghost, its secret buried beneath forgotten graves, waiting to be uncovered. A headless rider haunts the night, the echoes of an ancient evil stirring once more. As the two witnesses rise to fulfill their duty, their fight becomes more than just bearing witness to darkness. It is a battle to honor those who came before them. The weight of destiny pulls them towards an uncertain path, where history itself may not be what it seems. Shadows from the past moves in the crack of time, and 7 tribulations of war begins to haunt not only the witnesses, but all who stands beside them in both the past and present. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and check out my other videos after this one. And now, without further ado, let's explore Sleepy Hollow. Chapter 1. American History Rewritten. There's a common saying I keep hearing: history is written by the victors. Those who win the battle have the power to shape the narrative, often distorting the truth to fit their own interests. However, a more fitting idea I like to put to the table might be that history is written by what we're willing to believe, whether or not it's true. The American Revolution is a prime example. While it's a well-known event worldwide, how much of what we read in history books is actually true? There are countless depictions of American revolutions in popular media, from hit musicals like Hamilton to Sleepy Hollow itself. However, instead of telling the narrative that American history traditionally presents in media, the series transforms the entire revolution into a battle between good and evil. A hidden war exists within the fight for freedom, a supernatural struggle against forces of darkness that to our historical knowledge never happened. Of course, we have to take a step back, as Sleepy Hollow is a work of fiction, taking inspiration from the revolution and weaving it into a more entertaining narrative. But by rewriting history, the series gains the freedom to play with historical figures and events in unexpected ways. At the center of this historical reimagining is one of the two witnesses, Ichabod Crane, a man out of time. Having lived during the American Revolution and served alongside figures like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Betsy Ross, his first-hand account brings history to life. What could have been mere historical records from textbooks becomes something much more vivid and personal through his experience. This personal touch is the key to why rewriting history works in this series. It creates a connection between Ichabod's past battles and the supernatural conflicts the witnesses must face. The show masterfully integrates historical flashbacks, keeping them engaging and unpredictable. As viewers, we never quite know where the narrative is going, making each dive into the past an essential and compelling piece of the overarching narrative. Chapter 2. Tools of Time Displacement. What if you could actually time travel, either to the past or the future, through either technology or magical means? What would your first reaction be when stepping into that alternate time? How would you cope with the overwhelming sensory details of the world so different from your own? Ichabod Crane is forced to endure this exact experience. Having grown up during the American Revolution and becoming a key figure within the Founding Fathers' causes, he lived in a world shaped by his friendships, mentors, and vastly different cultural landscape. However, when he's suddenly thrust into the 21st century, he's confronted with an unsettling reality, one where everything he once knew has changed. As he enters this modern world, he inevitably grapples with the foundational question: how does one fit into a new reality so vastly different from the one they came from? For someone who lived a life of familiarity and tradition, this new era presents an overwhelming contrast. The simplest aspects like the cost of food, the rise in taxes, and shifts in the environment are just as jarring as the more obvious cultural shifts, like modern fashion, new professional opportunities, and coming to terms with a society that now embraces a level of equality that was only distant ideals in his time. And yet, despite these challenges, time displacement ultimately becomes a gift, both for Ichabod and for the audiences. For viewers, his journey presents a fascinating what-if scenario, allowing us to imagine how we might react in his place. But for Ichabod himself, this is more than just an adjustment, it's a second chance. He gets to witness a world that reflects the very ideals he once fought for, affirming that his sacrifice during the Revolutionary War was not in vain, but rather part of a cause far greater than himself. Chapter 3: The Weight of Destiny. Destiny is a peculiar thing. When you know you're destined to do something, that knowledge becomes the focal point of your life. Destiny can mean many different things depending on the context, but in fictional narratives, the concept often carries more weight than in real life. Many stories operate on the belief that destiny is meant to happen, following characters who have been chosen by fate. This narrative style has been explored in countless tales. Sleepy Hollow delves into the destinies of the two witnesses, as written in the Book of Revelation, exploring the seven tribulations they are forced to witness and prevent. Each apocalyptic event becomes a journey that challenges the witnesses, pushing them to accept that their lives will never be the same again. Their role as witnesses is one of danger, knowing that each supernatural or demonic entities they face could be their last. Their destiny is tied to a web of suspense and peril. Each witnesses must endure this burden in their own way. For Ichabod, his life is ripped away, displaced in a timeline he no longer recognizes. Everyone he once knew has been dead for centuries, forcing him to navigate a world that is both foreign and familiar. For Abby Mills and even her successor, the challenge lies in accepting the supernatural as an undeniable reality. This bond that ties the witnesses to a destiny they do not fully understand places them at odds with the very fate they serve. Despite their roles being preordained, they're forced to realize that destiny is not simply a path to follow, it is a test. It challenges them physically, mentally, and personally. Before they were chosen, Ichabod and Abby lived ordinary lives in their respective timeline. They had friends, loved ones, and a sense of normalcy. But now they must face the truth. The evil they fight could strike at any direction. Destiny is not a gift, it is a burden. It forces its chosen few to redefine who they are in order to survive. Chapter 4: The Headless Horseman. In any iteration of Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman is a key integral figure in the narrative. The spectacles of witnessing a headless man terrorize the characters instills an immense sense of fear in both them and the audiences. Among all the demons, witches, and supernatural entities that the two witnesses face, the Headless Horseman remains one of their greatest threats across multiple apocalypses. First introduced as one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, Death, the Headless Horseman is a creature that no one should dare to cross. The Rider in the Dark has decapitated numerous people during his reigns in Sleepy Hollow, making his presence both feared and unsettling. His existence feels both terrifying and out of place, which only heightens the unease whenever he appears on screen. Dressed in a Revolutionary War-era British redcoat uniform and wielding a blazing heated steel axe, the Headless Horseman's very image evokes mystery and brutality. His relentless pursuit of his victims, combined with his supernatural abilities, makes him an unstoppable force. Yet beyond his terror-inducing presence, the series adds depth to his character, offering a more nuanced perspective. Rather than portraying him as just a mindless executioner, the show reveals that he was once a close friend of Ichabod Crane. Feeling dishonored, he ultimately sold his soul to become the Horseman of Death. This backstory adds layers to his character, transforming him from a simple villain into a tragic figure whose fate, much like the witnesses, was inevitable. Throughout the tribulations, the Horseman plays a pivotal role, acting as a constant and a formidable adversary. In each encounter, he remains as a central force of destruction, making him the most dangerous figure the witnesses are forced to endure. Chapter 5: The Cost of War. Although the Horseman of Death, better known as the Headless Horseman, is the primary horseman represented throughout the series, there is another personification of the Horseman that ravages the witnesses during their tribulation: war. The battle the witnesses face against the Seventh Tribulation is in itself a war between good and evil. Unlike wars in real life, where the cost is mainly mental and physical, supernatural warfare comes with countless more ways for things to go wrong. The war against the supernatural is ugly. There are more costs in the fight. People are tricked into selling their souls without knowing, and death is everywhere, and tragedies are not far behind either. Supernatural war ravages the witnesses' lives, costing them heavily as monsters and artifacts from myth and legend influenced by the incoming apocalyptic event causes chaos in every direction. The line between ally and enemy is often blurred as powerful forces manipulate even the strongest of wills to serve their own apocalyptic ends. The witnesses are not only fighting the external battles, but also struggling against the weight of their destiny, forcing them to make impossible choices that could either delay or accelerate the end of days. They are forced to make sacrifices in each apocalypse, bearing witness to the tragedies that comes with the fight. As each tribulation unfolds, even if the witnesses believe they have grown accustomed to defeating evil, each battle presents its own challenges. War intensifies, leaving behind scars, both seen and unseen, that reshapes the witnesses and their allies into warriors bound by destiny, haunted by the cost of their fight. Chapter 6. What Could Have Been. When a series is cancelled before its conclusion, fans naturally wonder what was supposed to happen next. With only 3 or 4 tribulations faced throughout the series, we are left to question what other challenges the witnesses and their allies were destined to encounter. Each apocalypse the witnesses tries to stop carries a sense of urgency, but there is also depth in the storytelling. The struggle to prevent these apocalyptic events is compelling, and most importantly, it reinforces the idea that the American Revolution was far more complex than the history book suggests. Through the lens of supernatural events occurring under George Washington's watch, we see the immense danger faced during that era. As those same threats resurface across different periods of the apocalypse, it becomes almost miraculous that the colonies managed to win the revolution at all. Despite the many teases about future tribulations, there is a sense of completion. Ichabod finally becoming a United States citizen is a powerful moment, knowing he played a crucial role in assisting the Founding Fathers. This newfound status as a citizen of a country he fought for, both in the past and present, serves as a touching conclusion to a long-running arc. However, with that resolution comes new questions. What lies ahead for Ichabod, Lara, and the rest of their allies? The hints about Lucifer and the deal he had to make to prevent their current apocalypse suggest that their journey remains as thrilling as ever, especially as it teased the fight against the Kraken. Although it was unfortunate that the series was cancelled, Sleepy Hollow left us with a journey that still managed to come full circle. Ichabod's arc, from a soldier of the revolution to a citizen of the nation he helped shape, serves as a fitting conclusion to a story even if the battle against evil was far from over. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you soon in the next review episode.